Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have some very big news from the Middle East and Ukraine, and let's jump right into it. This morning we've seen massive explosions erupt across Tehran as Iran has begun lobbing new threats at Israel and the United States amidst fears of a new war. We've also seen that Israel's announced an air and naval blockade on the Iranian forces in Yemen after a major Israeli airstrike struck the Yemeni capital last night. Meanwhile, Ukraine has issued an ultimatum to US officials and insists that trading land with Russia is impossible as European leaders rally around Zelensky against US pressure tactics. We also have news of huge Ukrainian attacks on Russian military factories and a large logistics hub in Voronezh amidst new strikes. So we have very big news to cover today, and let's jump right into our first article, which goes to Conflict Radar. And right now in Iran, it is not a good time. We are seeing a huge fire break out in an oil warehouse in southern Tehran, which is obviously the capital of Iran, and right now this is a massive fire and it looks like it is spreading rapidly. And this morning it's very bad for Iran because this is only one of several different major fires that have erupted around the capital city. And right now, it's not really clear why these fires have started, but one thing is clear, they are getting out of control quick in the midst of a water shortage that Iran's already having, so I doubt they're going to be able to put the fires out due to that water shortage. But let's take a look at the video and see this massive fire erupting in southern Tehran. And as you can see right there, that is no small fire. That is a huge fire right there, and it's literally happening right in the capital city. And you can see right there on the ground, I'm going to go ahead and mute the sirens in the background. There are individuals that appears to be trying to get away from the area because I'm sure that heat off of that is significant. And you can see it looks like most people are trying to go about their daily business, but there's also some people that apparently work in the adjacent building that are trying to get out of there as this major fire is spreading rapidly in southern Tehran. And once again, we're told this is an oil depot or some type of fuel depot here in the southern part of the capital city. So it's very suspicious that this major fire just happened to break out today in the midst of a water shortage. So you notice you don't see any fire trucks around there, and I suspect you probably won't see any anytime soon. But that is the first one we saw right there. But that was just one of several major fires in Tehran this morning, because jumping into our next post here, this one goes to open source intel, and we also saw another oil depot inside of Tehran, this time in the northwest part of the city, also caught on fire. A major explosion occurred, and we're told right here in the post that this is the Sharan Oil Depot, which is a major fuel storage facility located in the northwest part of the capital city, and it did just explode. So let's take a look at the video and see this from a car view here right in the middle of Tehran. So let's take a look. And you can see right there in the distance, there is the smoke from that right there. Let me go ahead and mute the guy talking, but there is this smoke right here in the distance from this second oil site going up in smoke and also exploding here in the middle of the capital city. And nobody knows what caused this one either, but I suspect that we probably know exactly what caused this. And of course, Iran has alluded to Mossad agents running around their country freely, and the Iranian security services have no idea where all these agents are around their country. So I suspect this is a form of sabotage by the Israeli government, but of course, that is just speculation right now. We have no concrete evidence of it, but we can see here multiple major fires, and there's proof of the second one right there. But also, we do have another video here in our next post, which goes to EnforcerNews 24/7. We did see here at the Bahrain oil storage facility and the Bakirabad refinery that we did get another angle of this here. So let's take a look at our third video and see another angle of these massive explosions and fires breaking out inside of Iran. And there you can see it looks like there's a lot of spectators on mopeds right here, but there is the fire right there. As you can see, a very large fire, and it looks like the entire site is on fire here that we're looking at this refinery. So a very big piece of damage here to the Iranian oil infrastructure. And like I said, we don't know what caused it, but obviously it is significant that we're seeing right here. So that was our third and final video of these large explosions. But moving into our next post here, things are getting wild between Israel and Iran yet again, because moving into this post from open source intel, we see that Iran is back to threatening the US and Israel once again, and it looks like this war might be brewing right back up very quickly. And right here, when you see in the post, a senior IRGC official has threatened the United States, and he stated that America is 10,000 kilometers away, but we can bring our ships, the Iranian ships, within 2,000 kilometers and strike Washington, New York, and other cities with missiles. So that is a pretty blatant and clear direct threat right there from the Iranian officials, but I really doubt they have that capability because, of course, their ships ships are really, really junky, and I really doubt they have the ability to go that far and also to do anything. So pretty much it's all bark and no bite, but the big deal is they are back to threatening the United States yet again, which is obviously not a good thing because the U.S. is basically saying that the war between Israel, the U.S., and Iran, that is not over just yet. Apparently this war is going to continue, and Israel and the United States are going to continue pushing against Iran, and obviously Iran's still pushing against the West. So it's going to get very heated here very soon, and this is a good indicator of it. And speaking of that exact situation right there, we do have our next post here, which goes to FiTux Network, and we heard a statement from the U.S. president during an interview on Fox News that apparently he believes that the Iran-Israel conflict is not necessarily conclusive, and he does not count that as a victory amongst the wars that he says he has solved. So that is another clear sign that this situation between Iran and Israel is literally about to go hot once again. And right now we're seeing basically the calm before the storm, but we're already seeing the Iranian proxies get hit pretty hard here because last night the Yemeni rebels got slammed by Israeli airstrikes and they started firing missiles back at Israel. So with that, let's move into our next article, which goes to World Source News 24/7. And speaking of the devil, we do see here in this post that sirens across central Israel sounded last night after the Houthis from Yemen launched ballistic missile at Tel Aviv, Israel. So as we can see right here, a ton of red alerts across the area of Tel Aviv and also the surrounding cities as the Houthis launched yet another ballistic missile at Israel. So they are still acting up. They have not backed down. Very clearly, they're still firing missiles. But we did see that. But moving on to our next post here, this one goes to OSINT Defender. And it looks like Israel brought their wrath upon the Yemeni rebels because we did see last night as well, after that missile got fired at Israel, that several explosions rocked the Yemeni capital of Sana'a in the Houthi-controlled western Yemen following strikes by the Israeli Navy against the Aziz power station, which resulted in a significant electrical outage across the city and throughout other areas of the Sana'a governorate. So we did have a video here showing the strike on the power station, and it was some very, very heavy strikes. Of course, when Israel goes in and strikes something, it is usually the biggest explosions you've ever seen. So we do have a video here, so let's take a look. And there you see it right there. That was apparently the Aziz power station getting struck by the Israelis. I'm going to go ahead and mute that video as well. But you can see a humongous explosion right in the middle of the night. And this was allegedly conducted by the Israeli naval forces. And this is a unique instance where they actually used their naval forces to strike Yemen. So we do see that here on the video. And this was the western part of Yemen where apparently the Houthis are known to operate from. So a very big strike that we did see there on camera and a very big hit indeed. But the power station was not the only Houthi loss last night, because moving into our next post here from Conflict Radar, we do hear that according to local reports, Houthi leaders were present in the plant's control room at the same time of the Israel missile strikes, according to the Telegraph. So apparently, as we see here, here's another photo of the strike. Apparently, Houthi leaders were hanging out in the control room of the power station. What do you know? And it turns out they apparently got taken out in that hit. So that is probably the main reason why Israel hit the power station, was because the leaders were in there, at least according to local reports. So it sounds like a pretty big loss for the Houthis, and they were caught lacking in 4K Ultra HD right in their own power station. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to Joe Truzman. So we do hear from Joe that the IDF announced it carried out a long-range strike from 2,000 kilometers away on a energy infrastructure site near Sana'a, and the target was linked to the Houthi movement, which Israel described as operating under Iranian direction and funding, and the strike was in response to repeated Houthi attacks on Israel, including the launching of missiles and UAVs, and the IDF emphasized that the Houthis exploit the maritime domain to disrupt global trade and conduct really bad operations against the West. So that is why it was conducted in a very long strike by the Israeli military into Yemen yet again. So a very big hit indeed. But moving into our next post here, we have some very, very big bombshell news right now, also coming out from Israel from Conflict Radar. Because we have learned from the Israeli Defense Minister Katz that apparently there is an air and naval blockade that Israel is now imposing on the Yemeni rebels in Yemen, and right now it's going to be very painful for them, according to the defense minister. And this morning he said he attacked infrastructure and energy targets, and this is just the beginning, and the rest will be very strong and very painful as well. So he's saying the Houthis are going to pay compound interest to Israel, and it sounds like the interest is compounding fast, because an air and naval blockade, that's going to be quite serious for the Yemeni rebels, and I suspect that's going to probably provoke a response from Iran, because that's going to put their buddies down there in Yemen in a bit of a tight situation. So that's a very big announcement right there. An air and naval blockade on the Yemeni Houthis. Very, very big announcement. So we'll be watching that one. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Polymarket Intel. And moving away from our news about the Middle East for a second, we got to move on to our Ukraine-Russia news, because we gotten some big developments out of that region as well, because we are hearing from Polymarket Intel that Zelensky has made an ultimatum today and said Ukrainian constitution prohibits trading land with Russia and it makes it impossible. So that is a pretty clear ultimatum that Zelensky is issuing to the West and to Russia at the exact same time. Zelensky will not be handing over land, according to his own statements made this morning, in response to the U.S. pressure to try to concede land so that way the war can come to an end. So that is a very big revelation and basically gives us a map of how tomorrow's meeting at the White House is going to go between Zelensky and the U.S. president, and I suspect it's going to be something to watch. So we are hearing that from Zelensky, and that's a very big announcement that he is doubling down on yet again. So very big news. But jumping into our next one here, this one goes to Nexta. And not only is Zelensky saying that he won't hand over land to Russia in exchange for a ceasefire or a peace, but also he's fired back at several elements of the proposed peace plan that the U.S. and Russia came up with. And at the press conference in Brussels, the Ukrainian president said Kyiv rejects several key points presented in the plan, and Ukraine's main condition is a ceasefire first, and only then will they work on a final agreement. Zelensky also stressed that the contact line is the best place for negotiations, but talks cannot be held under the pressure of weapons, and he flatly rejected handing over Donetsk to Russia, and once again said the Constitution makes that impossible. And on security guarantees, he said that there are no details yet, but Ukraine sees EU membership as part of those guarantees. So that is a pretty clear stance that Zelensky's taking overall, and I would tend to agree with him. I think a ceasefire first is the right way to go, and until Russia is ready to agree to that, they are pretty much not ready for peace. So I think he's right, and I do agree with him pretty much all the way. But like I said, this is setting the stage for a very, very spicy White House meeting tomorrow with Zelensky and the U.S. president and the European leaders. But we have learned today some very, very big news that Zelensky is not going into that meeting alone. In fact, he's bringing a lot of friends from Europe with him to this meeting. And jumping into our next post here, this one goes to the Kyiv Post, and we've learned that European leaders will join Zelensky, including the European Commission President von der Leyen, as well as the President of Finland Stubb, and also a big one right here, the President of France Macron will be joining Zelensky, who is largely considered the largest proponent of Ukrainian sovereignty and peace. Also, we see here that German Chancellor Merz will be joining as well, along with the NATO Secretary General Rutte and the Italian Prime Minister Meloni. So it sounds like Zelensky is going in with backup this time. He will not be left out to dry, and he will be basically backed up by his allies in Europe in the midst of probably being pressured by the U.S. officials. So that's a good sign as well. I think that's a very good sign that maybe Zelensky will be able to hold his ground this time and at least make his position known. Maybe that will be the case, but we'll have to find out tomorrow. And also, not only are the European leaders going to be joining Zelensky tomorrow at the White House, but also we have heard that the European leaders are very upset with the fact that Zelensky is being pressured into this peace deal. And moving into our next post here, this one goes to Nexta yet again, and we've heard from the French President Macron, who will be joining Zelensky tomorrow, that Putin is offering Ukraine not peace but capitulation. In Macron's own words, he said the only ones who can speak about Ukrainian territories are the Ukrainian authorities, and according to him, Europeans will ask the U.S. president to what extent he is ready to join security guarantees, and he's also underlined that for a long-term peace, Ukraine needs a strong army. So that means no demilitarization for Ukraine, and in fact, that means arming Ukraine to the teeth to make sure they can defend themselves in the future if a peace deal is reached. So it sounds like Macron is definitely on the right page here. I do agree with him 100% on that, and obviously most people on the channel will agree as well, because that, of course, ensures Ukrainian sovereignty. But that's what we're hearing from Macron. But in our next post here, we also heard from the Deputy Polish Prime Minister, Radoslaw Sikorski, and he said in his post that for the record, since 1994, Ukraine already has guarantees of independence, and also from Russia and their borders. And in addition, on 22nd of April 2004, Vladimir Putin solemnly ratified the treaty on the Russian-Ukrainian border, and suffice to respect them, and the war is over. So basically what he's saying is Putin needs to basically honor what he had said before, which is what Russia agreed to, which was not to invade Ukraine. But it turns out that he invaded it anyway. So basically the Polish Deputy Prime Minister is saying that he does not want Ukraine to capitulate whatsoever. They don't have to capitulate because Russia is the one in the wrong. And that's pretty much obvious at this point. And I'm glad to see the Polish Deputy Prime Minister is backing that up. But jumping into our next post, this one goes to Visioner. In the meantime, while some in the West want to capitulate, Ukraine is engaging in some cowboy diplomacy today. And in the Moscow region, a major fire has broken out at one of the factories linked to Russia's defense industry. And we're not told exactly where this factory is, but it is in the Moscow region in Ramenskoye. And this factory right here is allegedly linked to defense industry manufacturing. manufacturing. So let's take a look here. It looks like the cowboy diplomacy is in full effect, and let's take a look at the video. And that looks like a very, very hot fire right there indeed. And it looks like that warehouse is burning to the ground that we can see right here on video. And that's once again another big win for the Ukrainians. Yet another warehouse has been taken out. So a very big win for Ukraine yet again. But we've also seen a bigger win for Ukraine in our next post here, which goes to Null Reports, because we've heard that Ukrainian drones reportedly struck the Lysky logistics hub in Voronezh in that region overnight. So we have two different angles of this, from a car and then from the ground. So let's take a look at our first one and see the logistics hub getting smashed by Ukrainian drones. It looks like it's getting a little bit risky and lisky, and it looks like this little place right here has been struck, as we can see right there in this very short video from the car. It looks like it has indeed been struck, that we can see right there. So that was our first video, but let's take a look at our second. Oh no. Oh wow, it looks like it got smashed right there. There was the actual strike right there on camera as well. So what a hit right there. Let's listen to that one more time. Sounded like a lawnmower coming in. It really revved up before it hit its target right there, but that was the hit right there near the logistics hub in Voronezh. That also, this Russian right here happened to be standing by and caught that on camera. So you could hear him run off. He got really scared after it hit, and we do see that there on camera indeed. So another big win for Ukraine. But also moving on to our next post, this one goes to the Kyiv Insider. And also, just when you think things couldn't get worse for Russia, they do get worse, because apparently the Russian occupation forces in Crimea have begun to restrict access to gasoline as fuel shortages intensify in Crimea. So they are having a fuel shortage now, and it sounds like it's getting very uninhabitable inside of Crimea under Russian occupation, at least when it comes to getting gas for your vehicle. So it's sounding like Crimea is not such a good vacation spot anymore. It looks like the Ukrainians have crashed the vacation, and it looks like they're going to have to find out where they're going to get gas from, because they're having a major fuel shortage, because they're having to now restrict the gas going to the civilians. So a very, very big situation for Russia as well that we're hearing about today. But with that, folks, that is actually our last post of the video. So if you've enjoyed the video and you found it informative, smack the like button, and also subscribe to the channel as well for more daily real-time updates just like this one. And also, we do see all the kind comments down below, and if you watched the video to this point, go down to the comments below and type LSA, that's 3 letters, LSA in the comments, to let us know you watched to this point, and we appreciate every single viewer on the channel as well. And if you want to support the channel financially, you can do so on our Patreon page, and the link is in the description below for Patreon, where you can go over there and sign up for a monthly membership and support the channel with even $5 a month. That's still a huge help as well, and it's the viewer support that keeps the whole operation running, and we do appreciate that very much. And we will see you all tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on our nightly War News stream, and we hope to see you all then. And with that, bye bye for now.